The Charlie Curnow bid war is heating up and we've got a new carousel in motion. It's the CODE AFL show on day 5 of the trade period. My name's Josh Barnes. I've got Ed Burke as always with me and Glenn McFarlane. Thanks for joining us, Macca.
Pleasure, Barnesy. Thanks, Ed.
Well, we've got a few deals to go through, but we'll start almost as always with Charlie Curnow. A lot of movement last night. Geelong offering up 3 first-rounders. Pretty much all they have to get Charlie, and Sydney, we believe, as we recall this, putting together a deal to front to Carlton. Macca, what were your first thoughts when the Cats deal came through, and where do you think things sit?
When you read 3 first-rounders, all of a sudden you get excited, but it means absolutely nothing now, does it? And that was the first shot over the bow. Obviously, quickly, Carlton today have shut that down pretty quickly. And it's probably what it has done is it's actually now flushing Sydney out and getting them active and trying to work out. Clearly, it's going to come back to some players and some pretty significant picks. Is that going to be Will Hayward, who's been spoken about a lot? James Rowbottom's name's been mentioned now. It's got to be players and pick, I would imagine. So I would think that, Sydney still holds the aces in that regard.
If it's players and picks, Ed, is Geelong almost out now? Was that they can obviously try and finagle some picks, but they don't seem inclined in any way to trade players?
No, they had no inkling at all that they'd give away a player. If they did, they could potentially get picks back from Carlton. If you talk about someone like Shannon Neal or Max Holmes, Carlton would love. That's beyond their wildest dreams.
Yeah,
I think you take that deal right now. I reckon
Carlton would be sending picks along with Curnow for that kind of player.
Yeah,
they've shown no willingness to do that whatsoever. I'm a bit surprised that they wouldn't consider moving Neal for Curnow, because what does their forward line look like next season if they do bring in Curnow? You think about Patrick Dangerfield being down there as well. It could get quite top heavy if you add Curnow to that mix and keep Neal in the side.
There's not a lot of chasing out of that back line if you got Danger, Jezza, Neal and Charlie Curnow there. You're putting a lot of work on Brad Close, I think, that'd do that work. So do you think he's not really a fit at Geelong?
I think he fits. I just think Geelong is a win now approach, because if so, I think you've got to consider parting with Shannon Neal or convincing him to go to Carlton so you can get your hands on Curnow. I don't really see how both of them playing together helps Geelong. So why would holding Neal help?
It would be a massive thing if they were to get rid of Neal. They won't do it. We know that they won't do it. But, given he had such a good year and obviously didn't end the way that he wanted it to, he was well beaten in that grand final as well. So you would think that Sydney's still got the aces in my regard there. The Cats will keep coming. They'll try and do, you know them as well as anyone, Barnesy. They're not done yet, are they, at this stage?
This was an early offer.
Shot over the bow.
They like taking things down to the wire as well, the Cats, so they certainly won't be out of the running yet. But if they're only going to offer picks, what would it take, Macca, do you think, in terms of picks? Because that was pick 19 and 2 futures. One of those, you assume, if Charlie Curnow's on the team, that's another pick 19-ish.
Yeah.
And then the Tasmanian one, it could be almost pick 30. That's how far out we're talking.
Yeah, you're talking, way out in the 30s in that sense. That's never going to get the deal done. So in a sense, unless they start bringing, Ed, you're right, unless they start bringing in players, which at the moment there's a real reluctance to do, I can't see it happening with them. Even though we know deep down Charlie wants to go to Geelong. That's the one that he really wants to get, down the highway, be a great lifestyle for him. So I think that's going to be fascinating the next few days. What I have noticed, and you guys would have as well, is the messaging from Carlton has clearly changed. It was, this guy is under no circumstances being traded. Now it's changed a little. There's that sort of acceptance in there that, for the right deal, that the Blues will get something done.
For Carlton, as they would say.
Yeah, for Carlton, yes.
For Carlton.
No, well, you've got to say that. They only do it, and you look at Essendon, if the Merritt thing gets done, as we all think it may probably do as the last trade, it'll be for Essendon.
Yeah, it's a fascinating shift in that language that you mentioned, Macca. It's changed really from a will to a want. So at the start it was he will be at Carlton. Now it's we want him to be at Carlton. And even today, Chris Davies on Trade Radio was talking about how we love Charlie, want him. I'm not going to talk about what negotiations would take, but this isn't a deal good enough. So he's leaving the door open to, if a deal does come through, he'll be sent on his way. So it's clear that has shifted dramatically, and they've probably realised that has to shift dramatically.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we are really learning now is that, as far-fetched as something is, anything's open, anything's available in terms of if it's for the right club. So they're in a situation now where Charlie needs to go. I mean, if he doesn't want to play there, in my view, I think that he needs to go, and they've just got to get the best possible deal. And really, there's a little bit of regeneration about Carlton at the moment, and I think that's probably a good thing. It's risky when you've got a coach in the final year of his contract under enormous pressure. But I don't mind the strategy of let's build for the long term. Like we've got some really good players there, but let's bring some others in that'll really help us through.
Yeah, before we move on from Charlie, Ed, Sydney, we're hearing names like James Rowbottom, Will Hayward potentially being floated. What do you think is on the table and what would Carlton be asking for?
Yeah, so the indications are that both of those two are open to a move. I'm just interested by Rowbottom to Carlton because it doesn't really seem like a fit. Rowbottom and George Hewitt didn't quite work in the same midfield at Sydney, which was why Hewitt wound up going down there in the first place. So if they can make that work around the ball, maybe, but with Cripps in there as well, you got to think about Adam Cherrett, Cooper Lord, who had a breakout season this year and probably is someone they want to keep in that mix, and Jagger Smith coming through too. There's a few different parts there, and I'm just not really sure where Rowbottom fits if he is part of that mix. I get it with Hayward, though. They had a look at him last year. He's somebody who can play close to goal and give them a bit around the goals.
Yeah, I think one thing they don't need is inside mids. They got rid of Matt Kennedy 12 months ago, almost to the day, because they had too many of those, and it feels like he's almost the same player. We'll stick with the Blues. They have been active, not just apparently not fielding calls for Charlie Curnow, but they have been making calls to others. So they got Campbell Chesser in a trade for pick 41. That went through on Friday morning. Ed, what do you think of Campbell Chesser? Is it a smooth move, a former first-round pick?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the kind of player that they need to bring in, an outside runner who can be a good user by foot. I think he could potentially play at half-back for them, but the way they were speaking about him when they got the deal done, they're interested in him in being part of that midfield group. They're talking about the role he played on the wing for the Eagles in the last 4 games of this season. He came back really well from ankle surgery and finished the season strongly. And I think West Coast would probably end up being a bit disappointed with that exit. They didn't have him contracted, so there wasn't much they could do there. But I think they would be a little disappointed in the... He was someone who had a lot of potential when he was picked up. I think it was pick 14 in 2021, but he just played too early. 2022, I think he played 14 games and he just wasn't ready. So it wouldn't have helped his development at all. And I think it's just a disappointing one for the Eagles. But that's where they're at. He played 36 games, so then only was able to play in 6 wins. So...
Yeah, no, good thing he got out of there. They also picked up Ben Ainsworth, essentially a swap for Corey Durden and their future second rounder. This was a 3-team deal. Corey Durden goes to Port Adelaide, which was one that popped up suddenly on Friday morning here, almost unexpected. Gold Coast gets picked up 29 for Ben Ainsworth. Firstly, Macca, Ben Ainsworth to Carlton.
Yeah, I like this. I really do like this. It's sort of, we knew that Ben was having a look around. Christian Petrarca comes into the team, so he's going to probably make it a bit more difficult there for Ben. But I think this is a good move by Carlton. It's essentially an upgrade, Corey Durden into Ben Ainsworth. And in that sense, it also gets them pick 67 in this year's draft, which is via Port Adelaide. And that's really important because they've got some NGA stuff they need to get, father-son NGA stuff they need to do. So they need to get those picks in. You know, Corey Durden wanted to get home. You know, he wasn't absolutely desperately trying to get out of the place. But, you know, it was a good opportunity for him to get closer to family and the like. And I think Ben Ainsworth, if you have a look, they're getting a 158-game player who had, you know, played 24 games this year, had a really, you know, really good year. He's above average for disposals, kicks, forward 50 marks. So I think it's a really good opportunity for him to settle in. It's exactly what Carlton need, I would have thought, Ed.
He's someone who can have a goal and a goal assist a game. He's done that quite consistently over his career. Maybe, you know, picked up as pick 4. People thought, oh, he might eventually move into a bit more of a mid-forward role, have a bit more impact than what he has, but he has been very consistent. So they know exactly what he can.
He doesn't get a lot of the ball. I think he only averages about 13 or 14 disposals a game, but he does make it count, and I think that is the exact need. He'll play a big role. We know the weakness of Carlton in that particular area, and I think this is a really good decision from the Blues. It'll work out well. Yeah,
so they came into this offseason looking for speed, really. So they got Chesser and Ainsworth, who were two that really ticked those 2 boxes. They wanted outside players, and seems like they're on track for that, Macca.
Yeah, and I think that's I like their strategy. Deep down, they've probably known for a number of weeks now that Charlie's going to go, and they're sort of working around different things there. I think some depth is always important. I think they probably found out this year that the depth wasn't quite there. With some of the injuries they particularly had. So I think, you know, I'm not suggesting they're going to play finals or anything next year, Ed, but I like the way they're operating in the off-season so far.
Yeah, it feels like they have the A graders. They just needed more sort of C pluses and B minuses.
Definitely, and that was the lack, I think, Barnsley. They didn't have enough of those players around them.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Ed, pick 29 going to Gold Coast to Ben Ainsworth. You weren't too happy with this for the Suns?
Yeah, I thought it wasn't much for the Suns, but I guess that's just where they're at, and they want those academy points to go after a couple of players, Zeke Ewell, Dylan Patterson. We had Chris Kavanagh in here earlier in the week. It was a very complex.
Cav's been doing sums for weeks.
The mathematical equation.
A beautiful mind, Cav, isn't it? He's got the sums going through his head.
Yeah, so for them to get both those players, difficult. Now looking a little bit easier that Ainsworth has gone. Also sounds like the Suns hang on to Jake Rogers now, another academy graduate who was potentially having a bit of a look around, but he's someone who can play at half forward too and plugs that Ainsworth hole pretty well.
And they're active enough, aren't they? They've got so many things going on at the moment.
Active
Gold
enough.
Coast,
They've got a bit going on.
Oh, they've got a bit going on. Gee, they're going to be hard to stop. Imagine Q Clash Grand Final next year. It'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, it's definitely not beyond the realms of possibility. I mentioned the carousel at the start of the show. It feels like we've opened up a new one this year. We always talk about the ruck merry-go-round. We've only seen 2 of those guys move. Liam Reedy to Carlton and Max Heath has gone to Melbourne, but the small forward carousel is just going at warp speed at the moment. Ben Ainsworth, Corey Durden, we've had Charlie Spargo, we've had Liam Ryan. It's just going at rapid speed. Does this say anything about where footy's at?
Well, I think it does, but you're the Nostradamus of the Herald Sun, I think. I think you predicted this very early in a midweek tackle episode that we have very early. Is this right, Barzy, that you're on top of this very early?
Hit the Moneyball pages every Wednesday in the Herald Sun. I think when he first arrived, we needed an excuse to talk about something else alongside him being on the table. But I think that there was indications then that people were telling me that clubs have realised they need more speed. They need more of these connector half-forward types. I think you can never have too many of them. And I think some clubs have realised they've played too many midfielders in those positions over the years. And if you actually get a half-forward to play half-forward, it works out.
It's a real specialised role now, isn't it? And it's so important. But credit to you. You did you did very well there early doors.
This is why we get you on the show, Macca, to pump me up. It's
exactly. There you go.
It's a very different art, recruiters pitching to small forwards and pitching to ruckmen who are on the ruck merry-go-round, I think. I just caught some Charlie Spargo quotes when he completed that move to North at the start of the week. He said that his role at Melbourne as a small forward was very rigid, that North were going to give him a bit more freedom to express himself up the field. So I don't think you're telling a ruckman, you can come here and express yourself.
It's funny though with Melbourne. I think everyone who's leaving Melbourne, there's been quite a few who they've all talked about that rigid approach, and I think that's what Melbourne's obviously done, and they've decided to free things up. But I think a few people had enough and were ready to go, weren't they?
And there is a big difference these days between your high half forwards and your small forwards who are playing deeper. It's a completely different role, and completely different players fill that. A taller man who gets up the ground still, Brody Mihocek, he did move to Melbourne. Maybe he likes that rigid stuff, went from Collingwood. This was really a deal just to get around Melbourne's compensation. So late picks and really swaps there, nothing too dramatic. But what do you think Brody will add to the D's, Mac? You've obviously watched him closely.
Yeah, I think it's a good pick-up if his body holds up. That's the big if, isn't it? Had a really frustrating year. But this is a guy who was a 5-time Collingwood leading goal kicker. He's only been pipped in the last couple of years through injury pretty much in a lot of ways. But mind you, I'm not sure he would have kicked 60 to beat Jamie Elliott this year anyway. And we all remember the preliminary final performance and the toe injury and the like. And he really did have a difficult back end. But I think if a fit, fired up Brody Mihocek, he's quite emotional in the message to Collingwood supporters today about having to leave and doing the right thing. I think it's a good pickup for Melbourne. He's certainly a player that Melbourne needs. They need some it sounds weird, regeneration for an older bloke in the forward line, but that's what they really need. So I think he could kick you, if his body's right, he'll kick you 40 goals for Melbourne, and they desperately need that, Ed.
Yeah, he'll be a huge help for Jacob Van Rooyen. If Van Rooyen's going to make it will be from this assistance he gets from Mihocek in the air. And I think chances are fairly slim that he makes it through the full 3 years of his deal being a first-choice player in that forward line. But that's probably what Melbourne want.
That's a good thing, isn't it? Yeah.
They get an excellent year or two out of him and then move on to the next phase in their forward line. That's ideal for them.
Mihocek was going anyway. We already knew that, Macca. But does Collingwood have enough in that forward line now? With Jack Buller potentially replacing him on the list, are they going to be still a premiership contender with that forward line?
It's an area of concern. Absolutely. There's no doubt. And it has been for a while. Some of them in there are aging a little bit as well. Yeah, it is. Really, Charlie Weston, he's just signed a new extension on a deal. He's the one that really Collingwood need to come through. He's not huge. He is huge. He's actually really powerful and strong. He's about 194, 195. Internally, the club's got very good raps on him. We only saw him ever so briefly in the one game and was injured. So I think he's the one that they really need to come through. And I think that's the whole thing with Collingwood. Across every area of the ground, they've got to start playing some young kids. They've got a few there. Got to find out whether they can play or not. And I think Charlie West might be the one that steps through. But yeah, they're a bit lean down there at the moment.
Yeah. We'll see how that one develops. I remember Craig McRae well, it must have been September last year, say I really would like a key forward, and they haven't really made many gains in that. Potentially they've lost out in the next 12 months on that sort of front. Now, Ed, we've sent you out away from doing some pen working with the paintbrush. Sam Draper's mural was famously at Windy Hill for quite a long time now. It's been painted over. What's going on?
Somewhat of a sad development at Windy Hill. I was actually there on the day that the finishing touches were put on this artwork.
You didn't paint it yourself? No.
I didn't paint it myself, but I did witness the final strokes being put on. I think it was, these two young guys from around Melbourne somewhere who did a very good job, and we'll show the picture of the original mural, but then, completely painted over. It's just a black wall now. It's completely blank. Who do we put on it? Because they've got to replace him with someone.
Yeah.
It's a good question, isn't it?
I reckon it won't be the captain, would be my guess.
The current captain or the future captain? I'm just trying to work out which one you're talking about.
I would think Nate Caddy would be the number one sort of target for that, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I'd be looking at someone like a Nate Caddy. Why wouldn't you do that? He'd be terrific. Like if you're thinking big fella, he's your man, I think.
Caddy and Kako mural would be nice.
Oh, that'd be good. Yeah, I like it.
Reminded me of how you will go into the supermarket or into your shopping centre in sort of December and January, and you go buy a calendar and half the people in the front have already been traded or have retired or whatever because they print those in July and August. They're always shocking.
Now, you're going to know that Essendon, like Zach Merritt's in Essendon's one for 2026. He has to be.
They've already printed it, I'm sure.
And I would say that Charlie Curnow is a fair chance to be.
They do go quite rogue in these calendars. Like you'll open Carlton's and April could well be Corey Durden, and you just go, why did that happen? He's not in their best 12 players. How did he get in the calendar in the first place?
There you go.
Now he needs to be in Port Adelaide's calendar if they reprint.
Did it remind you, painting over Sam Draper, of any other sort of rewritings of history, Macca?
Been quite a few, haven't there? Like I remember back when Essendon, the supplement saga, first broke, and they had the whatever it takes slogan up on the walls, and they had to take that down pretty quickly. And going back to the John Elliott stand at Carlton when Big Jack Elliott was removed as president, they lost all the the salary cap penalties there as well. It became the Carlton Heroes stand there. Bit different to the John Elliott stand. So there's been quite a few, Ed, name changes and the like.
Yeah, there's been a lot of rewriting. I remember I had the old Baytech Stadium hat back in the day for Geelong. That lasted about 6 months, didn't it, before they went bust?
So
Baytech?
how many have they... Yeah, and Collingwood had a great sponsor for about 3 minutes. It was a thing called Viatel, and they had them all on their collector's items now. Your membership card was the big Viatel one. By the time the season had started, Viatel had some issues. And
communications.
They were. Yeah, that's right. You remember that, Ed? You're too young for that.
I was just trying to tell from the name. I had no idea who
it was. But, you look at Geelong's ground. How many names? Is there any... I can't think of anything that would have had as many names as the old Cardinia Park. It's quite incredible.
Giants Park's gone through a few. They've gone through a few names there at that stadium. The Gold Coast one's had a few, but definitely not in the AFL.
What's in a name?
It rotates constantly. But we won't have to overwrite history on the Code AFL show because everything we do is perfect and never needs to be changed. But that'll be it for us on this Friday afternoon. We'll be back with plenty in the run home to the trade period ending on Wednesday evening. Lots of content on codesports.com.au. Make sure you keep tuned in.